Stephen Miller collapses. Stephen Miller collapses after a brutal call out. So there is a secret burner account that just outed Stephen Little Bitch Miller. So the people now know about the Dave P secret Uber account. It's been discovered. So Stephen Little Bitch Miller had a very busy week. He declared war on Democrats. He questioned another politician's genitalia on live TV. He was seen at the bottom of the reflecting pool feasting on algae. And he complained about scammers and grifters in Washington, D.C. with a completely straight face, a face that looks like it was molded straight out of mayonnaise. And he's doing all of this while working for the most criminally indicted administration in American history, literally clocking in every morning for a man convicted of 34 felonies. He also personally guaranteed that your children will be taught to love America, which when it comes to Stephen Miller really hits differently because it's coming from somebody who looks like he's never loved anything before or been loved. So that's reassuring. And buried inside what looked like the usual Fox News appearance was a lot of information. He named an ideology that is corrupting American kids, one that almost nobody in this country is actually teaching, and then he refused to confirm whether a Democratic Senate candidate is even a man, which he seemed to think was a really savage political punch from a mayonnaise man. But when you watch all of this together, something becomes really, really clear. What this administration is scared of. They are scared you are going to look too close. They're scared you are going to find out what I'm about to show you about Stephen Miller. They don't want you to look too closely. They don't want you to look anything up, but I will. So real quick, before we get into all of it, I'm Lauren Paritra. Willa Paritra and we run this entire podcast, daily show, independent and network free every single day. And we do this out of pure principle and an absolute refusal to let people like Katie Miller, the wife of Stephen Little Bitch Miller, the woman who can't even hit 60,000 subs on her YouTube. We do it to make sure that we are always, always keeping them humble and down on the charts.
That's the truth. That's what you need to hear. That is what you need to know.
So the least you can do is subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, etc. It's a really strong protective measure to keep Stephen Miller out of your home and out of your drain. So stay safe, subscribe. Miller existing and like being who he is and where he is in current times is weird enough on its own. But Miller does something that makes everything else about him look normal in comparison.
Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding. So as we close the Department of Education and we provide funding to states, we are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country. So these are a few of the areas in which President Trump has fought the cancerous communist woke culture that was destroying this country, where we were led to believe that men were women, that women were men, that racial discrimination was good, that merit was bad, and that safety and physical security mattered less than the feelings of liberal ideologues.
Oh, Miller. So Miller is talking unironically in 2025 about the closing of the Department of Education and sending money to the states. The Department of Ed, mind you, run by Linda McMahon, WWE Linda McMahon with the Schmepsteiny past. Linda McMahon is the one taking your money so that way we can pull it from Department of Ed. So that way we can dismantle the Department of Ed. So that way we don't send any money to public schools. He's saying they're going to make sure those funds aren't used to promote communist ideologies in schools. Name a school with communist ideology. Name an American public school with communist ideology. Communism, for all these little lizard people throwing around big words that they don't understand, communism is a system where the government owns everything. Private property doesn't exist. Resources get distributed based on needs and control. Communism has never existed in the United States. It is not being taught in Ohio or North Carolina. There is no communist lesson plan on running America sitting in a teacher's desk anywhere. It's not a thing that's happening. What was being taught before this administration started dismantling the department that funded them was history. So maybe we would learn from our genocidal past, from our most foul, awful parts of our American history that we're not proud of. We need to learn about these things so we don't continue to repeat them. Stephen Miller, wouldn't that be an inconvenience to your plan? Science would also be good, because if we learned science, we would know that if you put dark blue paint in a hot pool in the sun in DC in the summer, that maybe you're going to get a little bit of algae, and maybe it's not going to last. So they also in schools learn how to read and think critically, which are things that Stephen Miller cannot risk happening. So sitting with this for a second, you might see why it makes Miller a little nervy. People also, we know if you're a liberal or you're a Democrat, or you believe in democratic socialism and you believe in community resources and mutual aid, you've likely been called a communist by somebody who doesn't understand what that means, or you've been called a Marxist and Marxist indoctrination. Those words are big words, and they're scary if you don't know what they mean. They work really well on people who are not going to look them up, which is not coincidental. It's the same group of people this administration just defunded the schools for. So that's a fun circle to run through. And then here in June 2026, Miller then goes on Hannity, very worked up about a certain Texas Senate race, Democratic candidate, and his genitalia.
All I can say about Tallarico is that Texas is not going to elect an individual. I can't call him a man. Who knows what gender he is? But they're not going to elect an individual, an entity who has said the thing that he loves most in the whole world are trans children. He's a weird, strange, bizarre, totally unelectable human who is never, ever, ever going to be the senator from the great state of Texas.
Stephen Miller calls somebody else weird, strange, bizarre, totally unelectable human. Dude, get a shatterproof mirror. Nobody elected Stephen Miller, by the way. He was appointed by Donnie Dumb. And then there's some more tweets. In Miller's defense, he's used to a planet filled with specimens as freakish as him. He's not acclimating well to human standard or human expectation. I bet he stress malts at least 3 times a day now. Yep. With a face like that, he doesn't have anything to smile about.
The policies that are getting Americans killed en masse, historically for many years now, and of course it accelerated under the Biden administration, by criminal illegal aliens. This is a party that supports violence against ICE officers, supports violence against federal law enforcement, and engages in conduct and rhetoric and behavior that leads to repeated assassination attempts against President Trump, against President Trump's supporters, and against Republican elected office holders. It is a terrifying reality, but one we cannot turn away from, ignore. We cannot put our heads in the sand and pretend the Democrat Party of the 90s or the 80s or the 70s exists anymore, because it is gone, Sean. It is gone, and it is not coming back.
So there's Stephen Miller continuing to have a meltdown. Stephen Miller has a propensity for hate unlike anyone we know. And just when he was talking about Linda McMahon a moment ago, we know Stephen Miller, it'd be his wet dream to be able to roll out policies to the states, because we know, at least when it comes to reproductive rights and civil rights and bodily autonomy, whenever somebody says we're going to roll it out to the states, that's one way of saying we have more leeway, we have more runway to strip rights away from you there than federally. Look at what happened with Roe v. Wade. Tell me what happens when you have a pregnancy-related complication in the state of Florida. What happens when you have a miscarriage and you need medical assistance because you need health care related to that miscarriage? Call a hospital in Florida and ask them about that. Call a hospital in Alabama and ask them about that. Tell them what you need and see what they say. It's not good. Okay. That's what whenever somebody says they're leaving it up to the states, you could say, name a right men have lost, which varies state to state. So Miller, too, as a lizard creature, he thinks calling Tallarico a human is like a strange dig. He also is like, oh, I don't know what gender he is. Stop thinking about his nuts, man. Like, it is weird. He clearly is a man. He identifies as such. That's not too hard to follow. Don't act like you're some I'm so afraid of trans folks and everyone's trans now. Like, Stephen Miller, you are a swamp monster, bat, rat, hissing at the sun, mayonnaise face man. I need to tell you about a 52-year-old man from Houston who just lost his life savings to somebody pretending to be his bank. This man did everything right, and in just a moment, his safety net became his trap. His name was Paul Schendel, and one day he got a call from somebody claiming to be Wells Fargo. The caller knew his account details. Then a woman showed up at his door, took his debit card, and cut it up right in front of him. He thought that meant he was protected, but he wasn't. He lost $6,800, everything he had. And when Wells Fargo told him he probably wouldn't get reimbursed, he had a heart attack and died the next day. These scams are smart, and they're designed to look real because that's how they work. There's no red flags or typos, just one message that feels routine. And everyone tells you the same things. Use strong passwords, enable two-factor authentication, set up those bank alerts, get a password manager, and honestly, those things help. But here's what nobody talks about: how your passwords, alerts, and security apps are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Right before you lose everything, your bank alerts don't get your money back. Your password manager does not prevent fraud. You're not actually protected. You're just more informed about your loss. So that's why I switched to CoverOn. It's more than just prevention. It's got real-time response and actual financial backup. CoverOn continuously monitors your personal data and accounts for signs of exposure or misuse. So when something goes wrong, you get alerts, you get recovery support, and you get access to experts who actually help you secure your accounts before it becomes a full-blown takeover. And if the money is already gone, you're covered for up to $10,000 in online fraud loss. Because you don't need notifications telling you you're screwed. You need actual financial protection. So use code LPTV for 76% off. I'll include the link in the description and pinned in the comments. Don't wait until a story like Paul's becomes your story. Protect yourself now. So let's ground us in some reality for a second. James Tallarico is a state rep from Austin. He's currently polling 3 points ahead of Republican Ken Paxton. And I need to take a second on Paxton. We've done episodes on Paxton before, and the context here really matters. In 2015, Paxton was indicted on 3 felony securities fraud charges. He walked around under felony indictment for nearly 10 years, for almost a whole last decade. Eventually, he had to pay $300,000 in restitution and completed court-ordered ethics training. The Attorney General of Texas had to take ethics classes like it was a speeding ticket and he had to go to detention. That's just the beginning, because in 2020, 7 of his own top staff members reported him to the FBI for bribery and abuse of the office. They alleged that he'd been using his position to help a wealthy donor named Nate Paul, and that Paxton used Nate Paul to arrange employment in Austin for the woman he was having an affair with, so he could be closer to her. Impeachment documents allege that he used a fake Uber account under the name Dave P. to meet her. He had a burner Uber named Dave P. while serving as a top law enforcement officer in Texas. And in 2023, the Republican-led Texas House impeached him 121-23. His own party impeached his ass. Trump then, of course, pressured the Senate to let him off, and they acquitted him. Then in July 2025, his wife, who had sat silently like a trad wife doormat through the entire impeachment trial, listening to testimony after testimony about his affair, filed for divorce. She said on biblical grounds after 38 years. So Republican Senator Tom Tillis put it best. He said, to call Paxton ethically challenged is to call Jeffrey Dahmer suffering from an eating disorder. A Republican said this about the Republican nominee for the Senate in Texas. So that is who Tallarico is beating in the polls. So Miller's response to all this is to go have a total dummy ass meltdown on Fox News and say, I can't confirm if he's a man. I don't know. I can't call him a man. I don't know what gender is. He's a human. You're so close, Stephen Miller. You're so close. And he calls Tallarico weird, bizarre, totally unelectable. He's already been elected, bud. He's already been elected multiple times. He's the nominee. And he said human, like it was supposed to. So you think that that would be the fucking floor for Stephen Miller? You think he'd be in the basement? You think there's no way he can get any lower than questioning a man's genitalia and identity on live TV while defending Ken Paxton and his burner named Dave P. But he does this. And at first, some of the comments out there, I want to talk about some of the comments. The James Tallarico saying God is non-binary line, that came from 2021 when Texas Republicans were so obsessed with criminalizing and harming trans people that they introduced a bill to ban transgender student athletes, less than 1%. So Republicans were debating this, and Tallarico, a seminary student and practicing Presbyterian, got up and pushed back on the scripture. He said, Republicans were twisting the Bible to justify hurting kids. Where's the lie? And then the 6 genders comment came from the same hearing where he was being asked how the bill would handle intersex children born with chromosomal variants. And the Loving Trans Children line came from a 2023 podcast where somebody asked him what he loves, and he mentioned trans kids who showed up for themselves to the Capitol to advocate for themselves. That's pretty badass. Showing up to fight for yourself when you're a kid is a big deal, because a lot of adults can't even show up to fucking vote to advocate for themselves or for anyone else for that matter. So Tallarico responded to all of this on CBS by saying, Ken Paxton is clipping my cringy comments to distract from his career of corruption. Ken Paxton has a criminal record. I have a legislative record. So when you know everything you know about Ken Paxton, and there's more, you know, Catholic Church, wherever there's Catholic Church, there's usually PDF files, lots of them. And that's true around the crew that Paxton runs deep with, but we've had a lot of that. So anytime Stephen Miller opens his little lizard mouth, he's never done. So it brings us to this detail that kind of like ties a whole bow on all of this.
The Democratic Party has 2 groups now: radical extremists and cowards. The cowards who've allowed the radical extremists to eat the party alive. Maybe they know at some level that it's wrong, that it's evil, that it's dangerous, that is leading to all this incredible violence against conservatives that we've seen. Maybe they're just too stupid, they don't know that. But you have cowards and you have extremists. When you talk about abolishing ICE, what you are talking about is allowing every drug cartel, every Mexican criminal organization like the Sinaloa cartel, you're talking about letting every terrorist organization on planet Earth prey freely upon American men, women, and children. Worst of all, the children. You remember names like Jocelyn Nungary, where 2 illegal alien gang members from Trinidad were released on purpose, deliberately, by the Biden administration, and sexually assaulted and killed this precious little angel. Thousands of examples just like that.
Wait till you hear about Trump, my guy.
The people who, they work hard in a job that perhaps is thankless, nobody's appreciating them. They earn enough money, barely, to support their family, to take care of their kids, to take care of their loved ones. They follow every rule, they pay every tax no matter how outrageous. And then look around them, and everybody else that isn't doing it right is getting rewarded. So the scammers and grifters in Washington, D.C. are getting rich. The illegal aliens are getting rich.
Stephen Miller, the people who work hard, they look around them, they see everybody else that isn't doing it right getting rewarded. The scammers and grifters in Washington, D.C. are getting rich. The criminals are getting away with everything. You're so close, Stephen Miller. You're so close. That's almost exactly what we've been saying this whole time. Miller says the people who work hard and see everyone who isn't doing it right getting rewarded, maybe tumbling to the top of the highest position of power in the U.S. government, Donnie Dump. These scammers and grifters are your boss, my guy. They're getting rich. The criminals are in the house, the building you work for. Stephen Miller works for Donald Trump. Donald Trump, convicted of 34 felony counts, found liable for sexual abuse, currently facing more simultaneous legal proceedings than any president in American history. That's who Miller clocks in to lick the boots of every morning, to lick those cankly boots. And he's complaining about criminals getting away with everything with his whole lizardy chest. And he's not wrong. He is so close, actually. Grifters in D.C. are doing great. He just seems to be hoping you won't connect those dots to the building he works in. So after all that, all the communism, and I don't know, a woman named a man bullshit, and the straight-faced grifter speech, the last word goes to the last person Miller wants to hear from.
I don't know anyone personally that if you took Stephen Miller isolated and you played a clip of the things that he says.
Every day we arrest another alien they let into this country who raped a child, who beat a woman.
Quote, all the kinky-haired, swarthy-skinned, long-despised phantoms, all the teeming ants toiling for the white man's comfort.
and his little physical demeanor and not be able to say, there's something fucked up about that motherfucker.
Hunter Biden on Stephen Miller. There's something fucked up about that motherfucker. If Hunter Biden drops a mixtape, I'm buying it. This is great because some background on Hunter Biden. He had to go on the record once and specify that there was this like viral photo of him. And he had to specify that it was crack cocaine, not meth, because details actually matter to him. So I love how he called Stephen Miller sadistic, infantile, and ugly just for the hell of it. Just feels right. It feels like Hunter Biden has repented his sins. He has no more fucks to give. And the federal government spent years trying to make an example of him, years giving Hunter Biden primetime coverage while he was struggling. And he's still here and he's unbothered. He is very unbothered enough to be slandering Stephen Miller. So someone asked Hunter Biden on X to weigh in on Stephen Miller, and Hunter Biden, who was the subject of congressional hearings and like all of this shade, goes on to say, Stephen Miller is an ugly. That was his whole response. And I think that's really beautiful. There's something almost so perfect about it because Miller is out there unhinged, warning about communist teachers that don't exist, questioning about a Democrat and his balls, and complaining about grifters with a straight mayonnaise face. And Hunter Biden is just like completely unbothered, calling him ugly. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Hunter Biden has a point? Are you finding it entertaining? Do you think that, like, you know, he's done enough? He's done his time, if you will. And it's time that it takes all of us to go after Stephen Miller. So let me know what you think. Find us wherever you listen. We've been having our videos pirated a whole lot lately, and it's been really hurting this channel. So if you want to support us, the best way to do that is by listening to us here, sharing this video with a friend, finding us wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we'll be back with more.